Mike Repole, I appreciate you joining me, man. I'm so excited to have you on. You've been doing a bunch of podcasts lately, so it's been cool to see you kind of do the media circuit. But I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, no, Adam, I'm excited to be on it, and I know you guys do a great job here. But I'm really getting into sports between St. John's and
Yeah.
NoBull, my brand, and horse racing. So and probably something else down the line that if it happens in 2 months, I'll call you first. Okay. All right.
I'm gonna hold you to that now. You kind of you're teasing us a little bit there with that, but I like it. I like it. I want to start with this. You've had so many huge wins across different arenas. I mean, business and sports and culture. But now with having those wins on your belt, when you look in the mirror every day, what's the one piece of the journey you're the most proud of?
Adam, I'm wired differently, man. I'm 56 and I feel like I'm 16. Um, at 15 and 16 years old, I used to get 2 magazine subscriptions. One of them was Sports Illustrated, which most people my age did, and the other one was Money Magazine. So, most people got Sports Illustrated; they didn't get Money Magazine. So, listen, I love what I do, and really just being a kid from Queens and St. John's. It's been celebrated that I had a 2.2 grade point average in sports management. So it took me 5 years to graduate sports management. But, I always love sports. I always love money. Being the son of a waiter and the son of a seamstress. But, between, majoring in sports management, to Vitaminwater, to BodyArmor sport drink, to NoBull, to horse racing, to St. John's basketball. I love winning with people. I mean, success is best when shared.
You could have walked off into the sunset after all these big wins you've had, as I mentioned, with Vitaminwater and BodyArmor. It sounds like that's just not part of your DNA. So I want to dive into NoBull a little bit. And what was the moment where you identified NoBull as a brand, a business that you wanted to go acquire?
Yeah, great question. About 4 years ago, right before we were selling BodyArmor to Coke, BodyArmor sport drink. Mm-hmm. I love categories, but I also love, I love names of brands. So I love trademarks.
Yeah.
So if you think about my history, Vitaminwater, you get that. BodyArmor, you get it. Pirates Booty, you get it. Mm-hmm. NoBull to me sounds like a no bullshit. Like that's my mentality, no bullshit. And I reached out to the guys 4 years ago and I got no response. I started doing research and saw that it was a CrossFit brand. And I'm like, CrossFit is a little too rough for me, by the way. And I didn't have any tattoos, so I didn't qualify. I reached out to them again 3 years ago. And then about 2 years ago, I reached out again. And I met with the 2 founders, Marcus and Michael. And I thought that NoBull had this potential to go after more of a mainstream consumer or mainstream fan. Take that NoBull mentality from CrossFit and bridge it over to athletics, starting with the gym and then everywhere else. So the NoBull mentality for me is, about people who nowadays, think Adam, you and your producer Noah, how much bullshit do you guys have to deal with every single day? Yeah. And part of the reason I think I've been successful is I don't get caught in these rabbit holes. Like you're going to know if I love you, I'm going to tell you. If I'm thankful, I'm going to tell you. And if I, want to tell you to go fuck off, I'm going to tell you to go fuck off. And that type of intensity makes me who I am. So if I can now at 56 years old, teach that next generation of Gen Z and millennials, like, number one, don't take yourself so serious. Yeah. Number two, you got to worry about what you feel about yourself, not what others think. Mm-hmm. And you got to live up to your own expectations. These young people all think that they're competing against or they're competing with. All they're really doing at the end of the day, it will hit you that you're just really competing with yourself, Adam. Yeah. Me versus me mentality. This is what I want to do. And you're right. I could have retired at 35 years old when we sold Vitaminwater, but I would have been miserable. My wife came up with a great line about me about 30 years ago. She said, the only thing worse than Mike Repole having a million things to do is Mike Repole having nothing to do. Yeah. And that's it. So that mentality, that DNA, that mindset, that NoBull mentality is what I want to pass on to that next generation.
Yeah. One of the biggest parts of your career, I'm sure, has just been doing deals, right? That's part of your job as an entrepreneur. You're doing deals all the time. Take me inside when you're trying to acquire a majority stake in a company like NoBull. What does that negotiation look like? Like how you talk to the timeline a little bit, but just, you're trying to get a deal done. It's got to make sense for you. It also has to make sense for them, so they want to actually do it. How are you executing on actually getting that deal done?
Yeah, great question, Adam. I mean, I've done two sides of it. Mm-hmm. I've done startup companies like Vitaminwater and BodyArmor, and then I bought brands, Pirate's Booty for 20 million, sold it for 200, and NoBull. And I think when you're, chemistry is very important. What I always say to people, either whether they're going to work for one of my companies like NoBull one day, or we're going to do a partnership, or I'm going to acquire you, is, listen, if it works for you, if it works for me and doesn't work for you, you really shouldn't do it. Yeah. I mean, being totally blank and blunt. And if it works for you and it doesn't work for me, I'm not going to do it. So you have to see, you have to go out there immediately and cut through the clutter and see, is this something that we both want to do? Once we get to the spot where we both feel good about it, you'd be surprised that the negotiation is much easier. I think with NoBull, there are some companies I've taken a minority stake in. I'll buy 10 or 15 or 25%, leave the management team in place and just really here to coach and mentor that entrepreneur to the next level. Or like with NoBull, where I took a majority stake and worked with the founders and brought in an executive management team, brought in some of my people that have been with me at Vitaminwater, maybe Pirate's Booty, maybe BodyArmor, and now NoBull, that really know the system. I mean, like sports, a lot of times people or head coaches or entrepreneurs, whoever has the best players with the best system and the best brand wins. It's so important to have those things. The sports and business are very similar. I mean, you can tell me, I know you played sports, like who are the best teams? Look at their owners, look at the coaches, look at their players. I mean, I'm partners with Tom Brady and he's a great friend. Look at the New England Patriot, the evil empire, right? I mean, you had Kraft and Belichick and Brady and then all the other great players. And they didn't do it for 1 year. They didn't do it for 5 years. They did it for 20 years. Yeah. And now look what happens when Brady leaves. And now look what happens when Belichick leaves. They went from 20 straight division titles to not even making the playoffs.
Yeah. There's a great book I read one time. I forget who wrote it. It's called Brands Win Championships. And it talks about in sports how, specifically in college sports, that it's not just about the best X's and O's, the best coaches, the best recruiting. It's about brand. And the brand is that who actually acquires the best players. That's how you get the people, the fans in the seats, the revenue to pay your players. I'm sure that's something you live by in your companies.
I always say the two most important things in a company are people and brand. Yeah. Those are the two. People and brand. And if you have the right brand and you put the right people with them, sky's the limit. Yeah. If you have the right brand and the wrong people, you're dead in the water. It's over before you even start.
Yeah, you mentioned people. Another part of your job through your whole career, maybe the most important, has been hiring talent, hiring people and putting a good team around you. What are the things that you look for in people that you want to do business with, maybe that you want to hire someday? What are the things that you say, oh, this is a guy or a gal that really has it and someone I want to be part of my brand?
Yeah. You're asking great questions, Adam. I mean, I hire attitude over skills. Yeah. Okay. Now, some people that go to the Ivy League schools or the better schools get a little offended sometimes by that. And I remind them, I said, I didn't say attitude, no skills. Yeah. Relax. I said attitude over skills. I'm looking for people with great attitudes who also have great skills. Yeah. It is easier to teach someone skills than it is to teach someone attitude. So I'm looking for type A personalities. I'm looking for sore losers.
Yeah.
I'll ask somebody in a question like, hey, are you a sore loser? Do you like to lose?
Mm-hmm.
And if I get the political, like, hey, I mean, no, I'm not a sore loser. I learned a lesson and I try my best. And I said, okay, go try your best somewhere else. Now I want someone who says, like, I hired this girl one time at Vitaminwater, and I asked her if she played sports. And she said, yeah, she was excited. Played soccer. Okay. Oh, wow. Now she got like, okay, soccer. I was a goalie. I said, did you ever, win a state championship or championship? And all of a sudden I saw this look on her face, like she wanted to like tackle me. Mm-hmm. And I knew I hit a sore spot. And she said, yeah, I was a goalie. We lost the state championship, 1-0. And she said it was the only goal I gave up all year. Wow. And I saw that intensity in her. This was 15 years earlier. And I hired her, and she wanted to she's a CMO of a major company right now. And that's the type of intensity, determination, perseverance. Yeah. I love hiring ex-athletes or people who've played sports, or even, anybody with passion. Yeah. It's so important that you take that into the real world. If you love what you do, it's not work, it's just life. Yeah. And so it's very, very important to hire competitive people who want to win and also know what chemistry is and want to work inside a team.
Yeah. With speaking of great people, and you mentioned Tom Brady, with NoBull, you brought the TB12, the Tom Brady brand into NoBull. What was the real vision behind that move? Obviously you have the brand piece, you have the Tom Brady part of it, but what was it that made that the right move for the company?
I met Tom before I bought NoBull, right after he won a Super Bowl with Tampa. Mm-hmm. And so, I joke with him. He's never won anything without me, right? like with me. So I meet him. He starts to lose a couple of seasons. He hasn't, he's retiring. His performance is going down. He went through a tough divorce. I'm like, one day I said, Tom, you really hurt my reputation. I used to be a winner before I hung out with you. So I would joke with him like that. But what I loved about Tom is in the 5 years that I know him, the ability to build a great relationship. And you know what? I just came off selling BodyArmor for $8 billion to Coke. He just came off a 20-year NFL career, but he's been playing football since 3rd grade. So think about that. Yeah. So, I think we were both blessed that God put us in our lives at a time when we were both going through something special. So I met Tom, and he had TB12, mm-hmm. and he had the Brady brand. And obviously Tom's a big name, huge name. But when he was playing for New England, I used to tell him, I said, listen, there's a region out there that loves you. And then there's 46 other states who can't stand you. like you beat them, you crush them every Sunday. You've hurt their feelings, like because you're so good. Going to Tampa, I think made him a little bit more likable. And then over the last 5 years with Fox and everything, I think he was understood as a player off the field. Mm-hmm. There isn't a person who cares more about his teammates winning a championship than his own championship. There wasn't more of a team player than Tom Brady. I mean, we all know, you can see Bill Belichick runs a pretty tight ship. Yeah. For a 15 or 20-year veteran to still do that. And if you're a rookie on that team and you see Tom Brady, first one here, mm-hmm. doing that, everybody else falls in line. So Tom is an amazing person. And, I think he was creating brands that were niche. Yeah. Tom's in that 1% of the 1%. Mm-hmm. Like the Hall of Fame, when he's in there one day, he's the GOAT, right? So when you're coming out with TB12, and you need, and you got a TB12 method that comes with 3 massages and avocado ice cream and a chef. I said, Tom, not too many people can afford a chef and 3 massages. They kind of have jobs. Yeah. And it was like, he's been out of that realm. So he needed that. So he had this NoBull mentality. Tom's always had this split personality. Like, off the field, he's so calm. Mm-hmm. He's such a nice guy. He's funny. He's chill. And on the football field, you get, let's fucking go. He goes from Clark Kent to Superman and getting in someone's face. It's like he's got this incredible, persona about him, this alter ego. And I think I knew he would be great for NoBull. I knew he would be great for me. And I also knew I'd be great for him and I'd be great for his brands.
Yeah.
So when I told you at the beginning, getting the chemistry together and making sure it's the right match, the deal would work later. And listen, I lost 30 pounds in the last 4 years because of Tom Brady. I didn't know about inflammation diets. I didn't know about, about body work. I didn't know, like, he's taught me so much, and I've taught him a lot about business, and we're really, 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 really good friends. And I'm happy to be taking this journey. And Adam, just like me, he's got his 7 championships. I've sold my companies to create a brand called NoBull to help that next generation, both mentally, physically, and emotionally, and starting with mental first.
Yeah.
Because, Adam, this mental piece, the pressure on Gen Z and millennials with social media and the amount of pressure they have on them is way different than when Tom grew up or I grew up. We had a simpler life. It was a lot more focused.
Yeah.
And here, I had ADD as a kid. ADD is a requirement for kids nowadays with all the distractions out there. So the ability to hyper focus and zone in, like Tom would down 28-3 in a Super Bowl, or what you just said is I'm negotiating a big deal, and to, keep calm in the chaos. I think we both want to teach that to that next generation.
Yeah. Well, what's Tom Brady like as a business guy? Is he in the weeds and talking revenues and net profit and everything?
It's great. I'll tell you, he wasn't.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, the thing I love, and I was great friends and partners with Kobe Bryant, and even Alex Rodriguez. There's a genius on the field in the court, and then there's a genius off the court in the field. Now, it's not what they do for a living, but they have the right, the
DNA
bandwidth, to get there. So the questions that they ask are brilliant. Like, you would think, because they don't know the answer, but they know the right question to ask. So, Tom probably didn't know what EBITDA was. Now he does. Revenue after net revenue. No, he knows about that, valuations and things like that. But Tom, just like he's such a perfectionist on the field. He wants to know about, with NoBull sneakers, why did we choose this arch, and why is the width here, and how much is 9 centimeters? Like, he has all these questions that, honestly, I don't even ask. So he's got that mindset about being great and being better than ever.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of brands, as they try to scale, you almost, it gets harder to control the brand and keep the edge the brand has, right? And I'm sure you've seen that with the successful companies you've had before. How do you grow NoBull and that brand and what NoBull stands for without really softening the brand? You mentioned, I think, going into more lifestyle than not just sports. How do you do that?
I mean, it's all about being genuine, real, and authentic.
Yeah.
We live in a very fake world right now. We live in, what do you think they want me to say? I've probably cursed more in this podcast than all your guests ever, right? Like
True.
Like, NoBull stands for no bullshit. Listen, there are going to be people on your podcast that turn me off because I'm obnoxious. And then there are people that are probably going to watch it 2 times. Like, I always tell people, you have to be you, be yourself. So as a brand, once you start to, redefine yourself or change because of scale, this is who we are. We're unapologetic. We're going to be real. We're going to be genuine. We're not for everybody. Okay. But there are too many brands that try to be everything to everybody, and they wind up being nothing to nobody. NoBull is way different than Nike. Nike's lost right now. Nike is a lost brand. Nike's looking around saying, who are we? They have no idea. Everybody has gained market share on them. The Hokas of the world, the New Balances of the world, the Adidases of the world, the On Clouds of the world. I mean, here's a little secret, Adam. Nike's not cool. It's just not. I mean, Nike's Gatorade. It's just not a cool brand anymore. And the smartest thing they did is split off Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan's still cool. Nike's not cool.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Nike's become Under Armour, to be honest with you. And I don't know how you get that cool factor back with Gen Z and millennials.
Yeah.
So this is a marathon. This is a marathon building this brand, not a sprint.
Yeah.
We're here for the long haul. You know, NoBull is about, think about an athletic brand, you know, that is going to focus on mental first, then emotional, and then physical.
Yeah.
We all know that. I mean, Adam, I've said this in a couple of my podcasts, is I tell everybody in this world has a mental illness. We got to just come clean. We all have something. I don't know if you have a little ADHD. I don't know if you have a little OCD. I don't know if you have a little anxiety. I don't know if you get like everybody has something.
Yeah.
There's this stigma about mental illness. Well, NoBull's going to get rid of the stigma because if everybody has it, it can't be a stigma, can it? It can't be. Yeah. You know, I joke that I have so many mental illnesses, I balance myself out that I become normal. You know, like if you can laugh at yourself and know, you know, Tom Brady and Kobe Bryant were OCD. That's why Tom Brady, you know, made sure that he threw the ball in a perfect spot and knew every single alignment and knew if there was a little air out of the ball. Kobe Bryant knew if the rim was off 1/8 of a centimeter because he had that. Yeah. That's because these guys want to be great. You know, the worst thing about ADHD is lack of focus. Yeah. The best part is hyperfocus. Once you hyperfocus. So let's take this stigma away and let's just be real. Yeah. We all have something. Yeah. So focus on mentality. You know, NoBull will change mental illness into mental wellness. Like, will yourself to go. Work on your mental, work on your emotional, and then working out will make you only better and stronger. Yeah. I want to teach grit. It's a trait that's missing now. You know, like, you know, I encourage people to fail. You know, who wants to go 0 for 0 their whole life? I'd rather go 10 for 100. Yeah. You know, I'd rather be wrong 90 times and at least right 10. We got to encourage people to fail. If you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah. I talk a lot about with athletes that the very best in the world, they all have some kind of elite characteristic. Like there's something they do that they're the best at. And I want to ask you about being an entrepreneur. I think it's the same thing. If you had the level of success you've had, there is an elite trait that gives you an advantage over everybody else. What's your elite characteristic? Real quick, guys, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor on this podcast, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to fire on sports. I've tried all the different apps, sports books, daily fantasy. Prize Picks is the way. On Prize Picks, you're picking players instead of teams. So if you know sports like I do, you can make a bunch of money, especially with the free $50 bonus. So with code NEXTUP or the link in my description, all you gotta do is deposit $5. You get a free $50 in your account that you can use, go 10x, 100x, turn it into whatever you want. Code NEXTUP, $50 bonus, link in description. Let's go. What's your elite characteristic?
You know, work ethic probably. I mean, you know, listen, if you work 9 hours a day and you're twice as good as me, I'm going to work 20 hours a day. Yeah. And I'm just going to catch up. You know, if Tom Brady was my neighbor, I would be the second best quarterback in the NFL. If Tiger Woods was my neighbor, I'd be the second best golfer in the world. I mean, that's the competitive nature about outworking somebody. Yeah. Like, so to me, you got to have the work ethic, right? Sometimes people don't know in life where the world is going to take them. And they sit still. Move. Just keep going. You're going to find it. I don't know what it is, but just keep going. And everyone has their own journey. But to me, work ethic and putting the time in is the most important thing. And whatever you know, I have a saying, think big, dream bigger. And I've been so blessed to, you know, I keep moving the goal line. So, I keep wanting to win at a higher level or win this. You've heard the great athletes say, what's the best championship you've ever had? Or the best Super Bowl, the best World Series, or the best NBA championship? And the great ones always say the next one.
Next one, yeah.
To me, you know, BodyArmor was the best brand I've ever built till the next one, which is going to be NoBull.
Yeah. I talk a lot on this podcast about adversity and just that anyone who's been successful, there's been some point where it didn't go well throughout the journey. What's a moment in your career so far you feel like you faced the most adversity, and how'd you overcome it?
Adam, I say something that on the surface sounds very mean. I pray everyone has adversity. I pray.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why I don't really have to pray it is everyone is going to have adversity. Mm-hmm. Adversity is inevitable. Everybody's going to have it. But what I really pray for is that they work themselves through it and they get better for it, and they always will. I've had adversity my whole life. I mean, my mom put me in kindergarten because, she was an immigrant, first generation, and my grandmother couldn't watch me and my brother. So I'm 4 years old and kids are 6 years old in kindergarten. I'm 18 months younger. My dad's 5 foot. I'm 5'11", thank God. But I'm 13 years old and I graduate high school at like 16 and a half years old. So I'm getting I was a good athlete, except I'm playing with kids 3 years older than me that are blocking my shots every time. Mm-hmm. So I had to be scrappy. So 99% of the kids would have been like, fuck, I give up. But I had to just pick myself up, and I was always the underdog.
Yeah.
And, but I've had family adversity. People pass away. People close get sick. Businesses that, I had a great brand called Energy Kitchen. I lost $25 million. That doesn't feel too good. I'm 0 for 11 in the Kentucky Derby. I had adversity this weekend. I got 3 scratches and 8 losses. I got the most scratches in Kentucky Derby history. That's adversity this week. My daughter beat me in Monopoly last night. It's pissing me off. When she gets home today, we got to play. That was adversity. Yeah. So adversity is a great thing. You don't really want it, but you're going to have to deal with it. So how does NoBull or anything like address adversity? Build coping mechanisms for adversity. Put tools in place. I'm going to go work out. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to call a friend. I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to go play basketball. I'm going to go do something. I'm going to hang out with my kids. I'm going to have dinner with my spouse. Yeah. There are ways you can handle adversity versus just hiding in your room, waiting for it to go away. Yeah. It doesn't go away. It actually festers and gets bigger. Yeah. Tackle adversity head on and be prepared for it. It's going to happen.
Thinking back on your first, I love what you said about adversity. It's so true, and I think that when you have like one of the only guarantees in life is that bad things are going to happen to you at some point. It's all about how you respond to it. So I love what you said about that. Thinking back to your career, what was the moment you remember as the first I made it moment? And I know, but you probably didn't feel that way at the time, but where was it, when you had the first big wire hit your bank account, the first sale of a company, what was the moment where you're like, wow, I'm in a whole different world now?
I part of that I can answer. Mm-hmm. I'm Mike from Queens. Yeah. People who know me from 15 to 55, money only magnifies who you are, Adam. Yeah. If you're a good guy with money, you become a better person. Mm-hmm. If you're an asshole with money, you just become a bigger asshole. That's the bottom line. I mean, I tell this a lot. I wake up every morning bankrupt. Mm-hmm. I didn't even shave today. I got no fucking money. I don't have money for a razor. By midday, 12 o'clock, maybe I got 100,000. Maybe by 6 o'clock, I got a couple of million. At midnight, I've worked 18 hours. I got a couple of billion. I enjoy between 12 and 2, and then I sleep from 2 to 6, and I wake up bankrupt again. That mentality of someone's going to knock on my door and take everything from me is the chip on my own shoulder that motivates me. Mm. But if you told me I had to have a day, and it wasn't even about the money. On May 25th, 2007, we announced a deal that Coke was going to buy Vitaminwater for $4.1 billion. And we started with me and Darius, 2 employees, and we had 600 employees. Mm-hmm. And my parents have always taught me, my grandmother, success is best when shared. Yeah. So we had a 10% option pool for all the employees. The employees got about $450 million. The shipping clerk got $600,000. The receptionist got $400,000. 150 people got over $1 million. 150 people got over $500,000. Yeah. The ability to share that win with everybody was the first, oh my God, moment. But the night before, I called my parents, and I call them every night. I'm blessed. My dad's 85. My mom's 80. To still have them around is the greatest blessing of my life. My wife, my daughter, and now my parents still around to see this. My dad was a waiter. My mom was a seamstress. I was 36 years old, and I was just going to tell them the good news. I was excited to tell them. I'm going to tell my parents. So I call my mom. I said, Mom, put me on speaker. Get Dad on. So I'm so excited. I'm so pumped up that I'm going to tell them this news. I get 4 words out, and I get choked up, and I start hysterically crying, where I can't even speak, and I'm hyperventilating. And it's 36 years of dreaming and 36 years of my dad coming home at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock at night from the restaurant, and my mom leaving 7 o'clock before I woke up to first seamstress, and us having store brand names because we couldn't afford real name brands, and me sharing a room with my brother till I was 28 because we only had 1 bedroom, and my grandmother and my aunt sleeping in the pull-out couch. I couldn't even get the words out. I was crying like a baby. And it was just such a special moment that, you know what, this was this. I went from the most exciting announcement to I felt like I was embarrassing myself.
Yeah.
I couldn't speak. And it's just such a beautiful moment, and that they're still here, and I get to share it with them. And, I call them every night, and I'm working, and I joke with them that, I have multiple homes for them, and I take care of them because they took care of me. And, I always say, Mom, Dad, I'm working. I mean, you guys didn't make enough money, and I'm still at work. I mean, this is unbelievable. I'm still working because you guys just didn't. I wish I was a trust fund baby. I joke, and I just took them to the Kentucky Derby, and to see my mom and dad at the Kentucky Derby at 80 and 85 is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you enjoyed being part of the horse racing scene? I mean, it's a whole different world now. And you just said, what are you, 0 for 11? Is that what you said? It's a tough industry, man.
Yeah, you know what? Nobody gets to the Derby 11 times, so no one's ever going to break that record. Just so you know. Listen. I mean, I don't know if you've seen this Race for the Crown on Netflix. I happen to be one of the main characters there. I don't know why they picked me. I guess if you watch it, you'll figure it out. But it was top 10 on Netflix for the last 2 weeks. But, it was a sport that I dreamed about getting into because it was the sport of kings. I always say it wasn't a sport I was invited to. It wasn't a sport that I was welcome to. I joke, I say Muffy and Buffy are sitting to my left and my right, and other blue bloods. And I come in there shaved like this, and, used to be like little golf claps. And, I yell I was rooting for the Mets in 1986, with Dwight Gooden on the mound and winning a World Series. And, I think I've changed at least the celebrations of the game. And, we've won Breeders' Cups, we won Travers, we have a top stable, and, I'm doing something, I think, Adam, I don't advise this for everybody, but the type of personality I have, but I do want people to just be a little bit more than that. Not like this, but a little bit more. When you tell me, Adam, Mike, I have something that is 99% a sure thing, I have no interest whatsoever.
Yeah.
If you come to me and say, Mike, I have something that's a 1% chance, my ears perk up and I'm like, what? That excites me.
Yeah.
Now, I would hope that no one does that, but if something is 50-50 and people pass on it, they're going to have those regrets the rest of their life. You don't want to have regrets.
Yeah.
I'd rather have mistakes. I'd rather be wrong than have any regrets. I have no regrets. Yeah. I've made mistakes. I've lost money. I've been wrong. I've had to apologize, but they were all learning opportunities that made me better.
Yeah. NIL is such a big topic now. We talk a lot about it on this show, and you've been extremely involved, obviously, at St. John's and getting that program to prominence and bringing Rick Pitino back to Queens. So what's the experience been like being part of a college basketball program, one that's been important to you, and supporting from the NIL standpoint when there's so much unknown in college sports right now about what it's going to look like?
Yeah, I mean, college basketball is a business now. Yeah. It was a business before, but it's a chaotic business right now. I went to St. John's as a kid from Queens because I sat in the blue seats and I watched Chris Mullin and Walter Berry versus Patrick Ewing and Ed Pinckney and Pearl Washington. And, I watched all that and I went to St. John's and, you know, you know, in about 2000, I was able to help out a little bit because I started Vitaminwater in 98 and I just watched them through this 25-year period. Really like they didn't win a Big East champion. They didn't win the Big East regular season since 1985. They didn't win a Big East championship since 2000. And they didn't win an NCAA tournament since 2000. So as an avid St. John's fan, watching them every year just lose and sit there with 4,000 fans at the Garden, it was killing me. I did an epic sit down with Mike Francesa on FAN one day. If you get bored, you want to listen to it. And I always just wanted to help. So when the new regime, Father Shanley and Bill Janicek, the chair, came to me a couple of years ago, to me, there was one decision, and they made the decision. You got to bring in the best of the best to lead this. And it was Rick. And Rick and I know each other from horse racing since 2005. He's had horses in Kentucky. He was at, both, Lexington, which is horse country, and Louisville, where the Derby is. And we go to Saratoga together. And I said, listen, Rick was 71 when he took the job. He's going to be 73 this year. I said, Rick, I'm all in. Like, I'm not, if you decide to do this, I am all in. And he took a chance on this job and I wasn't going to let him down. And I think he's the greatest coach in college basketball history. I know there are some coaches people rank higher that were at one place and did great things at one place, but he's done it at 7 different places and, different final fours with 6 different teams. There's nobody, the common denominator of these colleges is Rick Pitino. Yeah. It's hard to do what he's done. And, last year we won our first, regular season championship in 40 years. We win a Big East tournament. We win a regular season game and then we lose. And then, I think, he went crazy for 2 weeks and I went crazy for 3 weeks. And we got the #1 portal recruiting team right now. And I think we're preseason. I've seen us as high as 2 or 3. Yeah. I remember the beginning of last year, there was like 5,000 or 6,000 people at the Garden when he just first started. And starting in January of this year, his second year in, going to the Garden and just looking around and seeing 19,300 St. John's fans. Yeah, it's cool. Just gave me chills. And watching 75-year-old men, with their 50-year-old sons, with their 25-year-old daughters, 3 generations all wearing St. John's, and having that. When St. John's is winning in New York, it went from a beautiful little Queens St. John's school story to a New York City story to a national story. And listen, I talked to Rick this morning. You might want to break it on your podcast. He's going to sign an 18-year contract. He's going to retire at 90. He told me he won't do it past 90. So I'm going to support him for the next 18 years. And, and we want to be top 10 for the next 18 years. This is not an anomaly. We want this as long as Rick's here, I'm here. And St. John's, this has been great for the school. Enrollment is up. Yeah. Admissions is up. Applications are up. It's been a marketing star for a great university.
That's really cool. What when you reflect on the phases of your career and Vitaminwater to BodyArmor to NoBull, obviously a lot of big wins, but lessons in there too of probably not what to do, of how, when you're at NoBull, I learned this at BodyArmor, I do not want to do it that way. Is there anything that comes to mind that you learned throughout those stops that maybe now at NoBull you change how you did something in the beginning, or just a lesson from that time?
Yeah. A lot of times when an entrepreneur or someone who wants to be an entrepreneur comes to me, I spend more time talking them out of being the entrepreneur than talking them into being the entrepreneur. And if I scared you away when I said 18-hour days, 7 days a week, kiss your family goodbye, You might lose some friends.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's going to be brutal. It's the toughest thing you'll ever do. If I talk them out of it, I saved them 5 years of their lives and a bunch of good relationships. Yeah. After I give them my pep talk, if they still want to do this, I actually want to invest with them. Mm-hmm. I'm actually willing to give them money. The first one, Vitaminwater, might have been the easiest of the hardest. Mm-hmm. Okay. I had so much naiveness that I didn't know that if somebody would have told me, I would have stopped. Yeah. Being naive as an entrepreneur, but having this work ethic, this passion, and this determination is amazing. At BodyArmor, when I decided to get back into beverages, mm-hmm. I almost became more anxious and almost wimpier. Yeah. Like, no, we can't do that. No, like, why? Yeah. Fucking try it. I almost had to reset myself, mm-hmm. you know, but no matter what ride I've been, even NoBull right now. I mean, listen, we're going to do, you know, we're a private company, but I don't mind sharing this. We're going to do about $200 million this year. Mm-hmm. Okay. Most people would say, wow, that's good. Except I'm going to lose 50 million this year because I'm not losing 50 million. Yeah. I'm investing 50 million. We have 100 new employees. We're looking at new styles, new operations, yeah. You know, bringing in new sneakers, new partners. I am building for the future. Mm-hmm. I'm not looking at a loss. This is an investment into, listen, I'm crazy enough to think in 10 years, NoBull's going to be bigger than Nike. Yeah. You know, I'm telling you first, mm-hmm. you know, it's 2035. NoBull's going to be bigger than Nike. Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to die trying. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to build this authentic, no bullshit brand that's real and authentic and genuine. That's going to teach people about grit, determination. It's a wellness brand. Yeah. Go out there and exercise. Go out there and we're going to have NoBull TV with podcasts with you, Adam, yeah. on talking about adversity and this is a NoBull TV podcast that we're doing right now. Yeah. Helping that next generation. Tell me about the losses. Tell me about the tough times. Mm-hmm. You know, other brands just want to pour Gatorade over you or celebrate the wins. They don't want to see the work that goes in. Yeah. The tears, the sweat, the doubt, the low points. NoBull wants to show you that side and help you through those times. Yeah. And not make you feel like it's only you. Yeah. It's everybody. And we're here to help you.
Yeah. What's the best advice you've ever received in your life?
You know, I mean, I've been around so many people. I don't ever think I've ever heard this one piece of advice. I picked up something myself, which is think big and dream bigger. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's always subjective to what I'm thinking and what I'm dreaming. Yeah. So I watched people in business, and I watched my dad do lunch and dinner shifts at a restaurant at the Marriott Lexington and do banquet and come home at 1 o'clock in the morning when I'm sleeping and leave at 10 o'clock, and I leave for school at 8 and he's sleeping. So I only saw him on Sunday. So that work ethic was watching him, just only seeing him on Sunday, mm-hmm. you know? So I've watched others do things and I've observed. I like, maybe because my brain works differently. Like, I like watching people in action. You know, I say this, if a lot of people can talk the talk, mm-hmm. but very few can walk the walk. Yeah. So I pride myself on talking the talk and walking the walk. Like now, I just told you we're going to be bigger than Nike. Yeah. I got to get the fuck off this soon. And I got to go work now. You know, I usually work 22-hour days. Now I got to work 24 hours because of you. You made me say something that was crazy, you know, but that's the mentality. Yeah. And this is the part that we have to help that next generation with, because right now we're living in a pretty tough time mentally and emotionally. And NoBull can be that first wellness brand, you know, and give you the tools, whether it's NoBull Nutrition, whether it's NoBull TV, whether it's NoBull sneakers, NoBull apparel. That's what I want to do. NoBull is a mantra. NoBull's a mentality. NoBull's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And we think we're going to do something really, really special and change some lives.
It's awesome. Last two things I got for you. I appreciate all your time, and sorry to make you work a couple of more hours tonight.
Not just tonight, next 7 days, years, you know.
I'm curious because your background, just being, as you mentioned, a guy from Queens, no bullshit, hard worker. When you become a billionaire, you enter this like whole different whole different realm of possibilities, whole different lifestyle. Has there been anything since you sold your companies, any like crazy purchase or thing where you're like, this is just absurd. Like people don't need this kind of stuff. Like you just see a whole different world of things when you enter that sphere of wealth.
Most of my friends, and I'm going to call them out, by name soon. They grew up with me since I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I was this little cocky little 12-year-old that said, hey, one day you're all going to be working for me. Hey, I'd play basketball in the schoolyard and somebody fouled me. I'd say, be careful. One day you're going to work for me. I might not hire you. So that whole persona, like, I was more obnoxious to a point where, now I could say things, people like, well, he does walk the walk, but I started to believe this. So, listen, I am blessed to have things, vacations, experiences. I take my 20 family members, to Europe every June for a 2-week vacation. My mom, my dad, my nieces, my nephews, my sister-in-law, my brother. Experiences to me are more important. I just took 70 people to the Kentucky Derby. Mm-hmm. Most of my friends and family since 2007, Adam, they've ripped up their credit cards and threw out their wallets. They don't pay for anything.
Yeah.
I get left with the bill every time. I don't know how that happens. I need to come back as a friend of Mike Repole, not Mike Repole. But I have two friends, which I like to embarrass them here, is my friend John Camus and my friend Damian Sousa. Recently, we grew up on McDonald's and fries and pizza. Mm-hmm. Lately, they had a sit down with me that the food on the private plane sucked. They complained about the food on the private plane. So here are two kids, here are two friends. We grew up, we had a black and white TV. We didn't even know what a remote was. And now I have two great friends that are with me side by side, and the private plane of food sucks and it's my fault. So, I can't make everybody happy. What can I tell you? So John and Damien have put me in a tough spot.
That's so good. Oh man, that's awesome. Last question I got for you. What's your why? What's the reason you do what you do every day?
I love that. I mean, give people in life what they want. In turn, you'll get what you want. Mm-hmm. I love helping people succeed. I love, the stock option plan was because I didn't want to be the only winner in the winner's circle. Mm-hmm. When our company when BodyArmor sold for $8 billion, there were thousands of people that made over $1 million. Kobe Bryant gave me $6 million. And I didn't want to take his money because I told him there was a 1% chance of making it. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me and said, 1%, those are the best fucking odds I've ever had. So I took his money. If it didn't make it, I was going to pay him back because I couldn't lose Kobe's money. Mm-hmm. But when we sold 15% in 2018 to Coke, I got to give Kobe back. We got a check for $300 million. Mm-hmm. I gave Kobe back $28 million. So he's already made $22 million on his investment, mm-hmm. and his stock was worth $200 million. Worst day of my life was January 26th, 2020. We just had the 5-year anniversary. Yesterday was Vanessa Bryant's birthday. Kobe passed away before the company sold, but he knew that the company was worth, anywhere between $5 and $8 billion. Mm-hmm. When we sold for $8 billion, the ability to give Vanessa and Natalia and Capri and Coco and Bianca over $400 million on the investment with a $6 million investment. Mm-hmm. Kobe knows that his great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren will be taken care of for life. And it doesn't ever get him back. But just knowing that $6 million is now like for the future Bryant generations, mm-hmm. they can do some special things. And, to me, that's my why. I mean, I have a foundation that is actually named after my grandmother called Nona's Garden.
Mm-hmm.
And most people would have the Mike Repole Foundation or the Repole. I don't even want that. Like, I don't want my name on that. I don't want my name out there. But, I mean, I gave the Mamba Foundation $24 million. The ability to give Sloan Kettering a $50 million check after we sold BodyArmor to help people with early drug development and targeted therapy and immunotherapy. I had family members that have been helped with cancer through targeted drugs and immunotherapy and cell therapy. And that means somebody maybe in 1980 or 1990 or 2000 donated to help somebody out, like my family members or friends that have gotten sick. And now to know that I can give back to these many hospitals and churches and schools, that's the best feeling in the world, man.
Yeah.
It's not about St. John's winning. It's about the feeling that St. John's fans have.
Yeah.
It's about the friendships that are coming back saying, we haven't gone to a St. John's game as friends in 25 years. And now we're calling each other up, texting each other. It's bringing back people to a special time when the world was a little bit different, to pack that Madison Square Garden, to make people healthier or better. BodyArmor was sold for $8 billion. But Tom and I talk about this. I hope NoBull can help 8 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the real goal, just to help that next generation.
Yeah. That's awesome. I could talk to you for 3 hours. This has been one of my favorite conversations so far, man. This was insightful and been cool to hear about all the success in your career, also the adversity and the reason you do what you do now. So I really appreciate your time, Mike.
Adam, I appreciate it, and I wish you well. And when you have adversity, you'll fight yourself through. And if you get stuck, you text me, give me a call. I'll be there for you. All right?
Will do. Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Next up.